Welcome, everybody. Since we're live, so I'm supposing we're going to be live. I hear Joey the dog back there in Rickie's house is just a yapping. So I'm Walter. This is Kuntry 3D, and tonight we're going to talk to Rickie Tanner live, and we're going to find out a little bit more about him. You know, he's a musician. He's a fantastic 3D modeler, and he's got a couple of printers back there he can print some of his stuff with. So I'm going to turn it over to him and let him tell y'all hello and do his introduction. And Rickie, it's you, buddy.
All right. How's everybody doing tonight? Well, as he said, my name is Rickie Tanner, Rickie Lee Tanner, for the musician stuff. Joey, and that back there is hashtag Joey the dog, and he's going nuts because somebody came to the front door. Wouldn't you know it? The doorbell would ring right as the stream goes live. That's
all right, buddy. You know how that is.
That's having a wife and kids and all that stuff. So, anyhow, yeah, I run the Tanner 3D YouTube channel. I'm also Tanner_3D on Twitter. See, I'm on Twitter, unlike Chris Riley. So there's the daily Chris Riley needs to be on Twitter. Got out. And I was bummed when I couldn't get Tanner 3D, but somebody else already had it. So I had to go with Tanner_3D on Twitter. And I design stuff and use 3D printers to print them out.
All right.
What I can anyway, because most of my designs, the problem is I design big things.
Right.
I have little printers.
Well, when Glenn gets his out, you'll be able to build his printer, and then you can print big things. Right.
Well, and I got a big printer coming. One of the Kuntry Klub is hooking me up.
Really?
Yeah.
What size you getting?
It's a 400 by 400 by 400.
So CR10 S4.
Yes, sir.
Sweet, man. That's pretty nice. All right. So let's go back a little ways, Rickie.
Okay.
You're from Kansas City.
Yes. A little
now, is that
south of there, Belton, Missouri, originally.
Yep, Belton, Missouri, and that's where you're originally from, correct?
Yeah, well, it's where I grew up. It's where I call home. I was there from the time I was 7 to my early 20s.
I got you. So now you sing in Nashville for a living, but
yes.
When did you know that singing was going to be what you did?
I started the first time I sang in front of a crowd with a band. I was 13 years old. I started off doing operas around the KC area. And there were 6 of them with about hour and a half from my house. And so I wouldn't say that it didn't like hit me as the bug hit me to do it for a living until the first time I finally got the nerve to sing and perform in front of my peers. And I didn't do that until my senior year talent show. The talent show happened. I was a geek. I was a shy and quiet guy. And the talent show took place 2 weeks before the end of the school year, my senior year. So I thought, what's the worst that could happen? I perform, they make fun of me for 2 weeks, worse than they make fun of me already. And then I don't have to ever see these people again in my life. So I finally got the guts to do it. And the funniest thing was I performed at a talent show, and all the years of going to school, I had never been tardy to class in my life. The day after the talent show, I was tardy to class for the first time because everybody kept stopping me in the hallway, students and teachers alike. And so I walked into the classroom, first time I'd ever walked into a classroom late in my life, so I didn't know what to expect. And it was funny. I'm like, I don't think this is the response most people get, but I walked into a standing ovation from the students and the teacher.
Wow. And see, now I didn't. I've been doing talent shows since I was little. You know, the first one I ever sang in, I think, was in the 5th grade. But you know, I did in '95. I did a stint for a little while. We sang in front of some pretty big crowds, but yeah, my music choice is a little different than yours at the time. Right. But so your talent show, and then you know, after high school, what'd you do, man?
Well, that I was 19 years old when I I became the lead singer of a bar band.
Right.
And we started playing in bars and stuff like that. And then I found out I was going to be a dad, and I was with a woman at the time that was not such a good woman. So my plans that I had to that point, which was to, when I turned 21 or 20, I was going to move to Nashville. And I had some savings in the bank and all that. I was going to use that money to keep me alive while I figured out how to make a go of things in Nashville. Instead, I ended up using all of that money and racking up another 27 grand in credit card debt, paying attorneys to get custody of my daughter. And so that kind of set my my path down a little bit different road for a while. I sang in bar bands and stayed in Missouri, and then we moved. When I met my wife, we ended up moving to St. Louis. Her family was from that side of the state, and played around St. Louis for a while. And I finally made it to Nashville. Well, let me backtrack just a little bit. July 15th, 2009. I showed up to work. I was a PHP developer for a living, a day job. And I showed up to work, and there were a bunch of boxes stacked up outside the back door of the building. And I parked my car. I got out of the car and started walking towards the building. My boss popped out the back door and met me in the parking lot and told me the boxes was my stuff, that he had outsourced my job to a company in India. So I loaded up my stuff, and I called my wife and I told her what happened. And I said, what are we going to do? And she said, well, you've always wanted to make music, make your living. You'll get unemployment. You've got until the unemployment runs out to make music, make ends meet. And so I went from a guy who booked 40, 50 shows a year to a guy that booked 170 shows a year, still living in St. Louis. And a few years go by, and we had paid a club down in Nashville $300 for me to bring my band from Missouri down to Nashville and get to play on their stage for 45 minutes during CMA Fest.
Mm-hmm.
And so we played our set, and we were tearing down our stuff. And a guy walks up to me and says, are you local? And I said, no. And he said, oh, it's too bad. He said, I'm the guy that does the booking around here, and the owner's standing back there, and he told me to come book you if you were local. And I was like, well, I've thought about being local. Right. He hands me a business card, and he said, give me a call if you ever get to town. And so I go back to my wife, and again, I've got the most wonderful, supportive wife on the planet. I hand her the business card, and I tell her what the guy said, and she said, that's it, we're moving. Just like that, And so we got back to St. Louis that Sunday, and Monday morning when she went back to work, she put in for a transfer with her job, and a month later we were living in Tennessee. So that's what got me here. So I mean, it took me until I was 37 to get here in Nashville, and in the Nashville area. I'm in Clarksville, but I work in Nashville 5 nights a week, and I'm 41 now, and I'm playing more shows than I've ever played in my life. I play 6 shows on Broadway every week, 5 days a week. And then I do my music live streams on Wednesday nights. So tonight on Facebook.
And I think you're a mod, Ricky, so you can actually paste the link in the chat to your live stream if you want.
Yeah, I can do that.
You can tell he totally misses Missouri, Chris Riley says. What's up? Hey, and
really close to barbecue.
Yeah, Joel said he needs to find his way to Nashville so he can see you sometime live.
Oh, man, that'd be great.
You know what? We need to pile up the whole country club and just make a friggin' road trip to Nashville and all pile into one of Rickie Tanner's shows.
That would be awesome. That's why I keep lobbying for a Rep Rap Festival to come to Nashville.
Yeah.
It would be awesome to have a Rep Rap Festival here, because that's the only way I'll ever get to attend one. I make the majority of, probably 60 to 70% of my money on Fridays and Saturdays. So it's hard for me to justify taking a Friday and Saturday off to go to one of these. So I'm like, if we could have one in Nashville, then I could go to the Rep Rap Festival during the day, go play my shows at night, and the after parties would be epic because I'd show you all my office.
Right. Right. Well, what you need to do is just go ahead and start one. So you need to find some folks around you in Clarksville or Nashville or somewhere around there, and y'all just start getting together and get it done.
The trick is finding more people who do 3D printing and stuff here in Tennessee. It doesn't seem to be that prevalent here.
You are preaching to the choir, my friend. You're very much so preaching to the choir. I know exactly how you feel.
All you 3D, there's a lot of you 3D printing guys down there in Florida, though.
Yeah, but Florida's a big damn state, dude.
Yeah.
You know, for me to go see, for me to go see Glenn, it's 5 hours. You know, I mean,
Tennessee's not very tall, but Tennessee's very wide.
Yeah, but most of it happens right in the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Memphis over on one side, and Knoxville's over here a little bit, but Clarksville and Nashville right there, you got a good population center.
Yeah, absolutely. There's got to be more of us out there. I just haven't found them yet.
But let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
Because, you know, you had your daughter. You fought to have your daughter. Well, at that time, you hadn't met your wife yet. Okay.
No.
So we skipped a little bit. We skipped a little bit of the Rickie Tanner story there.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I was a single dad for a few years.
Right, and you said you did PHP now, but did you go to school for any type of art or graphics or anything like that?
I was always kind of geared towards art when I was a kid. Did all the art classes in high school and stuff like that. You know, I went through to Art 4, you know, in my senior year of high school, and I didn't submit my portfolio to go to school, but my art teacher was like disappointed that I didn't do that. So she had been keeping some of my pieces of art, and she put together a portfolio for me and submitted to schools without me knowing she was doing it. And so it was a surprise to me one day when I got a letter in the mail from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago with a plane ticket. A round-trip plane ticket to come up and check out the school, and they showed me the school, and they were offering me a scholarship, and they took me over to the art museum afterwards and showed me that, and it was really cool. But their mistake with that was, you know, I was an 18-year-old kid who had never really been out of Missouri, and here I am in Chicago, which is it's a big city.
That's a culture shock. Yeah.
Total culture shock. They were done with me by 2:00 in the afternoon.
Right.
My flight to go back to Kansas City didn't leave until 7.
Mm.
So they left an 18-year-old kid by himself in Chicago that had never been out of Kansas City with 5 hours to kill in Chicago.
Right.
And let's just say I saw a few things that scared the ever living bejesus out of me, and I ended up going back to the airport with like 2.5 hours to spare, and just sitting at the airport waiting for my plane. And I got out of Chicago, and I was like, I don't ever want to go back. I never want to go back. So I turned down the scholarship and all that.
Wow. So then you come home and you just work. I mean, if you're like me, I mean, I got out of the service and I didn't really have a whole lot of skills. I worked a lot of odd jobs. You know, did a lot of different things. So you had the same life as pretty much everybody, you know.
Yeah, the path for me, school wasn't in the immediate future for me.
Right.
It was my friends were getting to go on trips and getting new cars and things like that for their graduation gift. I got handed the one ads with some jobs circled, and was told that I had 30 days to come up with my first month's rent.
Right. Well, you sound like my daughters. I always present them with luggage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if they have somewhere to go, it's packed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was going to have to pay $300 a month to keep living in my room.
Yeah.
And so it was like, here's the classifieds with some jobs circled for you to go check out.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting a full-time job working on the night crew at Sam's Club.
Yep.
And working in the freezers on the night shift. And I learned to drive a forklift while I was there, and got my forklift license. And that led to me being able to get a good job at the time it was called Herx Mary and Herself. It's global pharmaceutical company. It later changed its name to Aventis, and I think it's changed its name again since then. But yeah, I ended up getting a job there, and that was, you know, good work and making great money, and just driving a forklift. And then I was being worked really, really hard. I was working 7 days a week and 12 to 16 hours a day. And one day I was at work and I had this kind of lightheaded feeling while I was driving around a forklift, and somebody asked me if, you know, something was wrong. And I was like, yeah, I don't feel so good. And they're like, well, why don't you go over to medical? So I hopped down off the forklift, and when I did, my feet touched the ground. I didn't feel them.
Right.
I couldn't feel my feet. And so they're like, well, why don't you go ahead and sit down? And the symptoms continued to escalate. My fingers locked up on me and curled up, and my arms curled up, and I couldn't straighten them out. And then I went into a, you know, full-blown seizure. And so then I spent months with them poking and prodding and testing me in every way possible, trying to figure out why I was having these seizures. And during that time, I got vocational rehabilitation and started going to school. And that's when I got my associate's degree in computer programming. And I'd always been fascinated by video games and kind of wanted to work in that field, you know, if at all possible. And,
right.
And so after I got my associate's in computer programming, I went to ITT and got a bachelor's in digital entertainment and game design. And that's where I learned to do 3D modeling using 3D Studio Max. And yeah, I couldn't find a job doing that. Ended up as a PHP developer.
Right.
And it was funny because I went to the job interview, and the guy's like, you know PHP, right? I said, oh yeah, backwards and forwards. I'll be fine. I'd never touched PHP in my life.
Right.
He said, sounds great. We'll see you. I was supposed to start on a Tuesday, and I was having this job interview on a Thursday. And so on the way home, I stopped at Borders and bought a crash course in PHP book. Went home and set up a private server on my computer, installed PHP on it, and sat down with the book and just taught myself between Thursday and Tuesday, so that when I walked in Tuesday morning, I you know, it would look like I knew what I was doing. But you know, I had my associate's degree in computer programming. I had programmed in C++ and COBOL and, you know, all that stuff, Visual Basic, you know, and the logic behind programming doesn't change. So from language to language, the logic doesn't change, only the syntax.
Right.
So learning a new programming language is just learning that language's syntax.
Correct. And, you know, we say that all the time. Now, there are nuances in each language, but yeah, for the most part, it's learning syntax is all it is.
Yeah.
Once you know how to program, it's pretty easy to move along.
Yeah. The logic to solve a problem is the same.
Right. Right. All right. So now we fast forward. Okay. All right. We already got you in Nashville. So
right.
Now you're in Nashville, you're singing and all that stuff. Now, were you still modeling along, or was this just put on the wayside and you really weren't doing anything?
That was put on the wayside. I did a little bit of it when I was working as the PHP developer, because some of our clients would want something that I could do in a 3D program that I couldn't do any other way. And right. So I would model it and use it in the web site that I was designing, you know, in the overall design. And so I would dabble with it a little bit during that, but really I had not touched a 3D program since 2009.
Right. I got you. Well, you know, it is what it is. So when did you first, I don't want to say learn about 3D printing, because I mean, you read an article or whatever. When did you first think it might be something feasible for you to start doing?
It wasn't until, gosh, probably not even a year ago that I found out that 3D printing had become affordable.
Right.
You know, that it wasn't this pie in the sky. You needed a ton of money to be able to get into it. Because to me, for me as a musician for a living, a $5,000 machine might as well be a $5 million machine.
Right.
It's no difference. I can't afford 5,000. I can't afford 5 million. So, right. You know, but when I saw that people were saying you could get a decent machine for $500, I'm like, I could scrape together $500. I could make that happen.
Right.
And so I got interested in 3D printing, and because I had an interest in it because I'm also a toy collector. If you can't tell by the toys sitting on my shelf in the background, I'm also a toy collector. But as an artist, I've always had a passion for designing stuff. And I used to draw and imagine my own toys all the time.
Right.
From childhood. And I thought, well, if 3D printing has become affordable now, I could 3D model and print out my own toy designs.
Right.
And so before having a 3D printer or anything like that, I started watching tons of 3D printing videos.
Right.
And I think Joel Telling was the first one that I found his videos, and I watched every one of them beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
And his enthusiasm and the way that he presents stuff is just, it's absolutely infectious. And then after watching his videos, there were recommended videos. It was, Tom Sandlatter and Angus Devison over at Maker's Muse, and Joe, the 3D Maker Noob. And then I started finding some of they're much bigger than our channels, but smaller compared to them channels.
Right.
Guys like Print and Play. And I think it was a Print and Play stream where I found Chris Riley's channel.
Right.
And then I started watching Chris Riley streams, because Chris Riley was doing these live printer builds where we would get to sit and watch every process along in it. And I'm like, if I'm going to buy one of these, it would be really handy watching this guy who obviously knows what he's talking about,
right,
put a machine together. And so I can sit here and I can pick his brain. I can ask him questions. I can learn more about the process than I have from just, here's a review video. I'm watching him assemble it live, and I'm getting to see all the warts involved along with assembly. And when he makes a mistake putting something together, or something breaks while he's putting it together, and how you deal with that.
Right.
And so I would say Chris Riley's channel was a big inspiration. And then I think it was Glenn over at Fun King when I was watching one of his live streams one day, and I think that was the day. I think that's who it was. Memory's failing me. I got that CRS disease too, man.
Right.
But when they said, "Oh, Walter got his MK3 and he's going to be unboxing it," and I was like, "Walter? Who's Walter?" And so they put up a link to your channel, and I went to your channel when they concluded their stream, and that was when I think I became like your 26th subscriber, watching you when your videos were still really, really dark.
Yeah, right.
They weren't
really bad.
Your camera angles weren't as good, and I watched you unbox your Mark III, and and then the country club thing kind of formed, and we got to get to know and meet so many other great people that follow us from one stream to another, and it really does feel like a very, very tight knit community,
right?
Especially all of us, smaller YouTubers who are really watching each other's backs and looking out for each other.
Well, the thing is, though, I mean, and Rickie, you say that, but in here we've got Chris Riley,
right?
We've got Joel Telling's in here.
Yeah, amazing.
Pooch is in here. I mean, they're all here. And they may be watching in the background or whatever,
right?
But they're here, and they do offer support. Even the big ones,
I didn't mean to say that the bigger guys don't.
No. I get you. I get you.
I'm saying the guys like Joe Paddock and Robbie Mack and Mr. Buttram and all that. I mean, we're hanging out on Discord all hours of the day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And so, we're constantly talking to one another and talking about things that we would like to do or like to see. And, it feels like very much like family, because we're
well, that's like when I was on my way to Murph, right?
Right.
And you told me you lived in Clarksville, and I'm like, well, we got to go like close to there, you know. And you're like, oh, yeah. I'm like, well, I'll come through there if you want. And we sat down and had breakfast, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you snuck in taking a picture of me instead of getting a selfie with me.
I did. I got a picture of Rickie. I got a picture of Rickie Tanner eating breakfast, and he didn't even know I took it.
And I didn't even eat nothing. I was just drinking coffee.
Yeah, he was just drinking coffee. But
I was a cheap date.
And that was the first time you'd seen a 3D printer like in real life, right?
Right. Yeah. Your printed 3D printer in the back seat of your car was the first printer I had ever seen in person that I could touch with my finger.
Well, and I had some 3D prints there, and you held those, and I mean, we were getting on the road, so I didn't stay a long time, but and then so now you've got this bug, and you know that printers aren't this expensive, so and on my stream, we're chatting back and forth and all that, and you're trying to save up because you want to get a CR10. That was your I gotta have it because it'll be the right size for me to print my stuff and blah blah blah, right?
Yes.
So you're moving along on that goal, and at that time, 3D printers weren't coming out every week like they are right now,
right?
So, and people like Joel and them aren't just getting them for free just all the time. I don't know if you followed that thread on Twitter or not, but Pooch had something to say about that. Anyway, but so you're saving money, and it's hard. I mean, you sing for a living, and you got other bills,
Yeah.
And $500 or whatever it was, I don't remember how much they were, is not just something you go, okay, well, I'm gonna save $500 out of this paycheck and buy me a printer.
I gotta run everything past the CFO first.
Yeah. And is she home?
She was. I think she might have left to go get something to eat.
Oh, okay. Well, if she comes back while we're on the air, you need to call her up and say, Tanya, come here for a minute. You get her on the stream.
Still streaming.
Yeah. Do what?
She probably won't come up if she knows we're still streaming. She doesn't like to be on this side of a camera.
Yeah, don't tell her we're still streaming. You got to sneak her on here.
Yeah, and then I'll get my butt kicked for it later.
But so then you're modeling, and doing your thing, and we start watching your truck, and you're modeling. I think it was a truck first, right? The module,
the truck that's now sitting in shambles back there on that shelf because my 4-year-old grandson came for a visit and undid pretty much everything I had done.
The one that was it Mr. Buttram or Roy Holly? I can't remember. One of them two.
Roy Holly printed it out.
Roy Holly printed that out.
Yes, he did.
I still need to do one of those just like he did to put on my shelf.
And the attention to detail he gave the print, and then the feedback he gave me on the model led to me iterating several things on the truck and uploading them to Thingiverse.
But before that, before we get to that iteration, you were modeling this truck, but you didn't have any way to print it. So I mean, you were depending on other folks to print this truck out.
Yeah. The first thing I modeled that I shared on Thingiverse was the step van.
Yeah. That's right.
Step van. That was the first thing I put up on Thingiverse.
Right.
And no one's printed that one yet. But it was inspired by, like I said, I've always liked building my own stuff, and I'll use any materials necessary. Before I got a 3D printer, I would use any materials necessary to construct something. Now it's a little worse for wear. Hold on for a second. I will show it to you.
All right.
So the step van was inspired by this thing that I built, which is a step van, obviously. This is built out of the foam board that you can buy at Dollar Tree. The big sheets of foam board like you use for your kids' projects and stuff.
Yeah.
The wheels came off of a car's mater lamp that had the thing had burned up and kind of melted part of mater, but the wheels were still intact. So I ripped those off the lamp and used them for the wheels for this. But yeah, I built this out of foam board, and it's surprisingly sturdy for being built out of foam board, with a functional back door and all. Right now, it's in dire need of some repair. It's full of a bunch of crap, and it's missing a wheel. But yeah, you know, I was building my own stuff like that, you know, just as a project, and like craft, like sitting down and building it. And I was like, I got to get a 3D printer so I can start 3D printing this stuff. Well, if I'm going to 3D print it, I need to design it, because 3D printing for me, I never had any interest in printing out a low poly Pikachu.
Right.
You know, for instance, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that if that's what you like. That's just not what does it for me. I was like, I don't want to be, you know, I'm not sitting here just filling up my house with little baubles. I want to print the stuff that I'm designing. And so I sat down, I was like, well, there's no point in me having a 3D printer if I don't have anything to print. So I sat down and was going to start designing stuff. I tried loading the copy of 3ds Max that I had used back when I was, you know, still working as a programmer. And for some reason, it didn't want to play nice with my current computer. I don't know if it's OS or hardware issues or what. It didn't want to play with it. So right. I sat down and I Googled, you know, 3D modeling software. And the first thing that popped up was Blender, open source, free to download, and tons of add-ons. It's a powerful program. It can do whatever you want. So I'm like, well, I guess I need to learn to use Blender. So the first thing I sat down with with Blender is I started designing a Jeep. And the mesh has lots of problems because it was the first thing I designed in Blender. That's why I'm redoing the Jeep now. I started from scratch. I'm like, it's going to be easier for me to start from scratch and use the things that I've learned to this point and just do it over than it would be to try to fix the first one. So, yeah. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to get people interested in printing my designs, then I need to share some stuff. And the Jeep is a long way off from being shared. So one day I was kind of inspired by, I was looking at that foam board step van I built, and I said, that's easy enough to model. It's, you know, it's a Happy Meal box on wheels. So I sat down and I modeled it up real quick, and I was watching the Chris Riley Sunday stream, and I was talking about, you know, having the model done, and I was thinking about sharing it on Thingiverse, but I was concerned with sharing something that I hadn't tested myself yet. And Chris Riley said, man, he said, the community will be your beta testers. They will print it and test it for you, and they will let you know. Right. He's like, just put it out there. So while I was still on the stream watching Chris Riley on one monitor, I went ahead and exported all the files to SDLs and uploaded the step van to Thingiverse.
Cool. So okay, so you're still trying to get a 3D printer though, right?
Right. At that point, I still did not have a 3D printer. Right.
Okay. So,
which I believe is what we're coming to next.
Well, yeah, we're coming to next. So.
I'm trying to not take over your story and let you.
No, it's fine, man. It's your story, not mine.
Well, I mean, take over your show and let you progress through the story, the speed and style.
I did want to say to Mr. Roy Holly, Roy, that is awesome, dude, and I would most definitely love it. I don't know how I would take it on the plane. So even if you give it to me in person, which will be awesome, I will probably still have to pack it in something and mail it to myself.
You just ride with it in your lap on the plane.
Yeah. My wife's probably going to be buried in my shoulder because it's her first time flying.
Everybody be looking at you funny. Why is this guy holding a toy truck on the plane?
Right. So one of the community, one of the guys you watch contacts you and asks you if you'd like a printer. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it was once again, Mr. Chris Riley. I was watching another one of his streams, and he said, hey, Rickie, he said, send me an email. So I have your email address. He said, I've got a 3D design question I want to ask you. I was like, okay, cool, man. Yeah. And so I sent him an email. I had to work that night, so I went to work. And I got back from work and I had an email waiting for me that said, you know, I appreciate you supporting the channel and being in the streams and being active in the streams. And you seem like a really cool dude. Man, if I got you fooled.
Right.
And, you seem like a really cool dude. And you're designing some really, really neat stuff, man. And you need a 3D printer. He said, I've got a printer that I don't ever use anymore and never will. He said, it's not a very good printer, but I will send it to you if you're willing to help me out on the shipping end of it. And I said, man, if you're going to send me a 3D printer, I will cover all the shipping. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. And I was like, you just let me know, you know, how much money to PayPal you, and I will do that. And so he sent me his Trunksy X1.
Right.
And I opened it on a stream, opened the box up, and then I've streamed everything as far as when I got it, you know, put it back together and got it printing. And that's what I used to print my truck. Now I had to slice everything into little bitty pieces and then glue it back together and fill those gaps and try to use filler to fix the parts that warped and didn't line up anymore, and sand and file and everything else. And what took me weeks and weeks and weeks to build took my grandson 5 seconds to get his hands on and totally rip it to shreds.
Right, right.
He even managed, I don't know how, but he managed to break a tire.
Wow. Broke the TPU. Is it TPU or is it plastic?
No, it's PLA, but I mean, they're solid. He broke one of them, just shattered it into pieces. I don't know how he's 4. He's 4. That's what 4-year-olds do. So,
all right. So you got the trunk and you're not disappointed that you have a 3D printer. You're actually very ecstatic that you have a 3D printer.
I still love my X1.
I saw your excitement in your videos, man, when you were talking about it. And when it started laying plastic, I know it's aggravating because, you know, it didn't want to print right and all that. But you were so happy when it started printing right, or when it started printing plastic. You got it there, don't you?
I do.
It's okay.
It's in here. Oh, there it is. The very first thing I tried to print. So my first attempted print and my first print failure. All rolled up into one.
That's right. That's right. Hey, I got to say this real quick because I've been asking about him for about 3 days, but Nappin's in the chat finally. He's been hiding from us and not coming to see us anymore.
Yeah, I haven't seen Nappin around in a while.
I know, and I was worried about him. So you got it printing and now you've got, which you had it before, but now you've got the bug. Okay.
Which I don't know if you could make out. I wrote on the back of it. My first print. 4/16/18.
Yeah. Dude, I remember it. I remember it well. Like it was yesterday.
And I keep it right here in my desk drawer.
But you so you got the bug now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now here is my my question is, what does Tanya feel about that? Tanya.
You know, she at first she was completely non-supportive of this. She's like, look, I support you in plenty of other stuff. This is silly. This is stupid. Right. But I told her, I was like, look, you know, music used to be the thing I did on the side, and I had, you know, something else full time. So music was my escape from my full-time life.
Right.
Now music is my full-time life. Sometimes, even as much as I love music, I need to get away. I need something, you know, I need a hobby. I need something. And right. She's like, okay, you can have one hobby. And I said, okay. I said, 3D printing is going to be it. And at that point she said, okay. And she's a lot more behind it now because we just found out a few days ago that my daughter, the one I got custody of when she was 6 months old and I was 20 years old, is 21 now, and she's moving out of the house at the end of this month. which means we're going to have an open bedroom.
Right.
And it was her suggestion, not mine, that we turn that into the makerspace and we get all the 3D printing stuff out of this room.
Cool, man.
So after my daughter moves out, I will clean the room up and convert it into a more proper makerspace than what I have now.
That's friggin' awesome, man. So that's cool though that she's supporting it more now that she understands that, you know, you really are passionate about this too, because that was one thing that took my wife the longest, because I would go from hobby to hobby to hobby and sink everything that I had into that hobby, but then it just gets to the end and you're like, okay, that's enough for that. But this one doesn't end. It just keeps going, you know?
Right. I mean, because I've had hobbies in the past where I reach a point where I can't do more than I've done. And then once I reach that point, it fizzles out for me. Right.
That's exactly right. And, you know, and for some people, 3D printing does that. It fizzles out and they're like, oh, this is great. And then they're gone, you know? I don't have that. I don't feel that. And I know you don't either, because you like to design and print. And right. See me, I like to build printers. I really do. I like to put printers together. I like to get them working. That's what I like about 3D printing, more so than even the 3D printing part. So
for me, running out of something to print means I need to sit down and design something else.
Right. Right. Okay. So now let's go back about, well, it's been 2 months ago now. So you found a ANET A8, I believe.
Yeah.
So after all the horror stories that you had heard about ANET A8 printers,
right?
And you found one on Craigslist or whatever it was, and you decided to buy it.
Right.
Why?
It was $70.
Okay. but you know, like I said, after all the horror stories of ANETs and A8s and burning down your house and all this other stuff, why would you buy that machine?
Well, so far, the two machines I have, I do not leave either one of them unattended. And part of it is the type of the machines that they are. And another part of it is my obsessive behavior. But, you know, so I don't leave them unattended. So I'm like, everything that I've seen about an ANET A8, and they talk about burning down houses. Everything I see, all the stories basically come down to they had the printer in a very unsafe environment. That's why the printer was able to catch enough fire to burn the house down.
Right.
The way my printer is now, number one, I don't leave it unattended. But number two, if it caught fire, I don't think the fire would ever get very big.
Right.
But especially because I don't leave it unattended. But, you know, it would burn itself down maybe. And maybe the shelf it's sitting on. But, you know, I don't see it being able to burn the entire house down. But, you know, we've also got, you know, we've got a nice alarm system with that if my smoke detector goes off and nobody's here to clear the alarm and tell it to shut off, it calls the fire department for me.
Right. I hear you.
You know.
So I don't know if the news you told me is that going to be made public, or are you just waiting on the chat beforehand, because there's something else coming, right?
Oh, yeah. You're talking about the CRT.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm another member of the Kuntry Klub is hooking me up, and he is sending me a CR10S4, and he is doing that because my printer fund that I had set aside and had finally had saved up enough money to buy a printer is being diminished by something other than a printer.
I got you. No, I understand. So you've got an S4 coming.
Yes.
Now you will be able to print some of these panels in the right size.
Right. And the thing is, it's, you know, it's also going to be, you know, he let me know that it does need some work. He said I might have to put, you know, $100 worth of parts and time into it, but, you know, I'm willing to do that. So it may take me a little bit to get it up and printing like it did the A8, but the A8 works now. It doesn't print the full build volume because the bed is poorly worked.
Well, I wish you'd have told me that, because I've got a couple of them laying over here. You could have had one.
Oh yeah, well, I didn't realize it was going to be that bad until I got it printing. And once I got it printing, if I get it to where it's the right height in the middle,
yeah,
it is dragging on the bed everywhere else but a spot about that big in the middle, so close that it will not extrude plastic. It just drags and leaves a mark through the glue stick.
Right. Well, okay, so I'm gonna tell everybody, hey, if y'all have any questions for Rickie, y'all go ahead and put them in there. Just make sure you put the Kuntry 3D in there so I can see the highlight. So you're gonna have this stable of printers. You're gonna keep modeling and that type of stuff. Yes. But now let's get to your YouTube stuff, because you've started your YouTube channel. You know, we talked Rickie into getting going, get her done.
Right.
You know, well, and one thing was, you know, whenever you were getting your printer and you were getting, you know, other stuff and stuff like that, we were like, you got to film it. You got to do this. You got to do this stuff.
Right.
And we kind of pushed you for that. But let me say this, and I've started your video like 5 or 6 times, the first one, but now you're doing a series where you start from scratch and you showed the basics, and then you're going to keep moving through Blender. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the plan. The first video that I did the basics on, I forget which episode it is now, but it says, "Let's talk Blender basics."
Right.
Is the title. Was the best response I've had to any video I've ever put out. It's getting more watches, more view time, and stuff like that. And that's when I realized, I was like, I think there's a lot of people out there that are interested in Blender and sitting down and learning it, but they don't know where to even get started.
Right.
So I tried to show people how you can start with that literally the cube in the middle of the screen and just start extruding stuff and manipulating vertices and make something.
Right.
You know, a lot of the stuff that's on Thingiverse is not these profoundly detailed and difficult models. A lot of it is literally little, just little baubles. And I'm like, you can make your own of those with just these simple moves.
Right.
If you learn how to do these and you do these repeatedly, you can build anything. These moves here, you can literally model anything you can imagine.
Well, I have to say, man, because, I watched some of it, and I watched how you move the stuff, and I watched Daryl Maloney, the Broken Nerds video on him modeling the Psy from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or whatever.
Which a huge congrats to him getting hired like as a member of Tested.
We'd actually talked about, how we talked before the interview?
Yeah.
We had actually talked about that before the interview, and he said he wouldn't make it public until all the paperwork and all that stuff was signed. So I was hoping he would let it go on the interview and put it out there then, but he didn't, because he wanted to make sure all the T's were crossed and I's were dotted, and all that stuff. That would
have been huge if you could have gotten that exclusive.
Right. And Martin asked, do you have any music on Spotify?
Yes.
Okay, so they just search for Rickie Tanner?
Rickie Tanner.
All right, that's cool. Uncle Ron said, Rickie, after your dehydration event last week, how are you feeling, buddy? All good?
I'm feeling fine now. It was last Friday night was rough though.
Drink.
I was on Discord with the guys when the kidney pain set in.
Drink more water.
Yeah.
Lots and lots. My wife can't stand water, so she just can't. It actually makes her sick to sit there and drink water. So
well, that was the most painful, physically painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. It was pretty bad.
Right. Well, I've been there. I understand exactly what you mean. I've been there. And Martin said he found your music. So you're going to continue this series now. I mean, there comes a time where you're just not. I mean, you're going to go as far as you can go, and then you can do, whatever you want to do. I mean, you can do that anyway. It's your stinking channel, man. You do whatever you want.
Well, I plan on spending at least half an hour to an hour of each video let's talk some basics and let's just do some really basic moves. And now that I've figured out how to screencast my keys, I just got to remember to do it every time I switch projects, because I have to rerun the script. But there's a script that I can run that will show people the buttons I'm pressing and the mouse clicks that I'm doing, so that you can, as you're following along, you can see exactly which keys I hit and exactly which mouse movements I made.
That's awesome, because you say stuff in your first video and I'm like, mine don't do that when I do that. That didn't work for me. God dang it. It's like everybody says the center mouse wheel on here, you can like click and move stuff around.
Yes.
My center mouse, I've got nice Logitech mice, and they don't do nothing when I click the center wheel.
That's weird.
All right, so I got another one here. What's your thing on Thingiverse? It's Tanner 3D, right?
Tanner Designs.
Okay, you want to paste it, or you want me to go find it, or what?
No, I'll do it.
All right. I'm glad you're doing it too, because I can come back and grab them and put them all in the description later. That was Filament Frenzy wanted to know how you find your stuff on. Oh, Robbie Mac beat you to it actually.
By a second.
Right. Okay. Cool.
There's a
bunch
of stuff that there's a bunch of stuff that nobody's printed yet and hasn't been tested. So there's probably a lot of stuff that will need some iteration.
Now I see you're loading up on filament back there, so you're getting ready to print quite a bit of stuff too now.
I'm hoping to. Yeah, I'm hoping to.
I hear you.
And I didn't get a chance to make a video on it, but there's a package that I received yesterday, and I haven't had a chance to.
Yeah, and I'm glad you showed that to me, because there would have been no mail thing Thursday for tomorrow if you hadn't showed it to me. I forgot all about it. So
I was going to make a quick video, because all I do is live streams.
Right.
And the reason for that is I work so much, I don't have time to edit video.
I just don't, because I don't like editing video. It's like my mail things. I try to film them so that I can just drag them into the timeline and go, okay, there you go.
Right.
Jeremy F says, Rickie ever race cars?
No. My wife drives like she has.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you wouldn't want me behind the wheel of a race car, because I drive like I'm taking Miss Daisy to the store.
Well, Tom says, oh my God, Rickie has a bar stool full size. That's so happening.
Yeah, the story behind that is another Chris Riley story.
Go ahead.
Chris Riley hit me up with an email and said he had a project and he wanted me to keep it under wraps, that he wanted to do, that he wanted a full-size bar stool designed. So I sat down and you know, I hate to sound like I didn't give it much time, but I did kind of throw it together. It took me about 20 minutes to design, because he sent me a picture of what he wanted, and so I just mocked something up really quick that was kind of close to that picture, and I sent him the STL, and he goes, "Perfect, that'll be great." And I was like, "Awesome, cool." And so some time goes by, and I didn't really know what he had in plan for the project, because he didn't even tell me, other than he wanted a model of a bar stool.
Right.
And I guess a couple of weeks go by, and he sends me an email with showing me a picture of just the top of the bar stool set on the print bed and the hang printer hovering over it. And I went, "Oh, okay, this is going to be good." So it took a long time to print. So I was very anxiously awaiting him making the project public and seeing the results of it, because I didn't even get to see the full reveal until everybody else did, and it was a 3D printed bar stool, and I did catch some shade over the design. I did.
Well, I mean, when you throw it together in 20 minutes, I mean, no test prints, no nothing. Hey, man, this is what I got. Here you go.
Right. I probably should have spent some more time trying to figure out how to make it print with less support, but I did not do that. So Yeah, that's what I caught a lot of crap over the amount of support that that thing used.
Yeah, no, man. I thought it was cool, man. And you know, and we always talk about this, and not every interview, but most of them. That is what's so cool about the 3D printing community, is the openness and the willingness to help, no matter what. You know,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
I mean,
I wouldn't have this computer I'm streaming on right now.
me neither.
Yeah,
I would not either. So I get you. No, it's amazing, man. You know, the people that gather together and you know, help each other out. I mean, it is so cool to see. Now what's your next? I mean, I know you're getting a CR10 and we'll probably see you putting that together and printing with it.
right.
But do you got any ideas of you know, of a model that you hadn't started on that the CR10 will open up for you to do?
Oh, absolutely. Dozens of them.
Dozens of them.
I don't have enough hours in the day to design all the things that are in my head that I would like to design.
Right.
Which is why I know I won't run out of things to print anytime soon, because I haven't even printed all the stuff I've already designed, let alone all the things that are still in my head that I want to make. There are several plane designs I have in my head, and boats and tanks. My wife wishes I would print something or design something other than military vehicles and cars, trucks, and jeeps.
Just say that's not what this is about, baby.
Right. My wife wishes I would sit down and design some, you know, stuff for her, and I need to. She needs to give me some ideas of what she wants.
Right. Right.
You know, I'm not good at coming up with stuff on my own that she might want that I could design that I could then print.
Tom said that bar stool can so be printed without supports.
Well, that's an awful lot of bridging when it gets to the foot rungs is the problem. The foot rungs were the problem.
So, all right. So we look at that. Look who's in the chat. Hey, Miss Tanya. Now listen, and I'm talking directly to Tanya now because I know she's watching because she's in the chat, and I guess she's back at home. Did she make it back home?
I guess so. I don't know where she's. Yeah, I think she's watching. I think I hear it downstairs in the bedroom.
Okay. Well, Miss Tanya, whenever the stream is done, I want you to come upstairs, and we won't be streaming. Nobody will see you on camera but me, and come up and say hello to me face to face whenever we're done. Let's see. All right. So anybody else got any more questions for Rickie Tanner? Because we are where we are now. Rickie, if you could have your perfect 3D printer, what would be the biggest improvement you would make on a printer? What would be your biggest improvement to do?
Well, I was actually discussing this today with Tanya. What I would like to see somebody come up with, I mean, because it doesn't even exist yet, and there's people getting close. M3D, you know, is close with their crane quad. They're mixing 4 colors now.
Right.
You need to mix 5.
Well, with CMYK, you can pretty much make any color, right?
You still need white.
You still need white. That's true.
So yeah, you need a nozzle that takes 5 filaments at the same time and can mix them.
Well, you can do RGB in white, right? RGBA.
But I don't think that would work with additive mixturing.
And it may not be. It may not. You know,
yeah, I mean, RGB is mixing light.
Yeah, yeah. Light works that way, right?
Yeah, right. Light is red, green, and blue makes every color. But with like solid mixing, you need cyan, magenta, yellow, black, and white.
Right.
So what I would like to see is a printer, probably a hypercube type design, linear rails with the ability to mix 5 colors.
Oh, there's Tony Ryan said there's an 8-color mixer by a Canadian Kickstarter, CMYKW, and transparent and flex.
Oh, there you go.
That was pretty much do it, right?
That would. So yeah, you know, the first company to get one of those that works and prints well.
The thing about it is, I mean, with M3D's technology that they've got now, that should be, you know, relatively simple to add another color.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think we're close. I think we're close to what would be considered the you know, the ultimate level of FDM printing. Beyond that, it's moving on to other technologies of 3D printing. You know, your SLS and
right. Well, and the price for SLS and SLA needs to come down, and you know,
and the amount of mess,
and
the amount of mess that they make, because SLS and SLA printing are both very, very messy. SLA printing, you're dealing with, you know, toxic resins.
Yeah.
You know,
Mad Mike says he's going to say Geetech is not the company to pull that off.
No, I would agree with that. Although they do have a couple of, you know, decent machines out there right now with the A30 and the A10. I think they're both decent machines. Well,
I have to tell you, I do love the Hypercube style of printer, and with the Duet, it's quiet. It just runs good, man. It's pretty cool. It'd be pretty cool. Okay, wouldn't it? Let's see. Really killed per se. Yeah, Colin's bringing up some valid points on the Core XY design for the 5 colors. The head would be so heavy that it takes away some of the quite a bit of the, you know, precision. But I think that you could over-engineer it to be stout enough to handle that. So
you know, you start over-engineering a machine like the was it Art 3D guys, the guys that are sitting on top of their printer.
Yeah,
that they haven't got it printing at Murph or Earth, either one. But talk about an over-engineered frame. You know, I think you could probably be printing with that thing and hit it with a 16-pound sledgehammer, and it wouldn't skip a step.
Right. Da Vinci full color. Oh yeah, the Da Vinci full color.
Yeah, those don't count.
Yeah, that's the ones that inject ink into white, isn't it?
Yeah, it injects it injects like ink, like an inkjet. And most of the time you see people, their colors come off looking all jacked up.
Yeah, you know, they get a few good prints and they showcase those, and then every other one they're kind of like hiding in the background somewhere.
Yeah.
But guys, this has been Rickie Tanner. I mean, this is he's live in Nashville. You can catch him 5 nights a week, you said? Tonight.
Every day but Tuesday and Wednesday I'm downtown.
So you will be on Facebook tonight from 9 until 10, right?
Yep, right. 8 o'clock Central to 9 o'clock Central.
Yeah,
9
to 10 Eastern time. And you can paste your link back out there. I don't know if you still got it up somewhere.
I can type it.
All right. Well, y'all go check him out on Facebook tonight. He'll be singing for his supper. So that's cool. All right. So we always do this. If whatever else you want to say, where they can find you, you know, that type of stuff. And then I'll take over and say goodbye to everybody, and then I'll hit the stop button, and then Miss Tanya can come up and say hello.
All right. Well, obviously I'm, you know, Tanner 3D on YouTube, Tanner_3D on Twitter. Chris Riley needs Twitter so he can tweet me. And
twice in one stream.
Yeah, I got Tanner3D.com, but I haven't been keeping up with posting stuff on it as often as I should.
All right.
That's my 3D stuff. And then my music stuff, RickieLeeTanner.com. On Facebook and Twitter at Rickie Lee Tanner. So I'm easy to find.
All right, Rickie, I'll be back to you in just a second, buddy.
All right. Later, guys. Thanks for having me.
Hey, guys, that was Rickie Tanner, and I guarantee you learned more than you ever thought you would know about Rickie Tanner, which is awesome, though, because one thing that it shows is everybody's got a story, man. I say this all the time on my channel. Everybody's got a story, and all the stories are good. They may not be the best story because they have, you know, bumps in the road or whatever, but everybody's got a story. And if you're here talking to me or listening to me or whatever, it had a good ending because you're still here. But you know how this is. I'm Walter. This is Kuntry 3D, and we will see you. I am not, let me say this real quick. I am not streaming tomorrow night. I was supposed to, but I will not. I will try my best to, you know, be in the chat some on the Friday night or Friday Hangout European style on Friday. Please go check that out if you haven't already. I think Martin's still here. He can give you a little information about that. If not, find him on Twitter. But the next time I will see you will be Saturday morning for morning coffee. My Amazon wish list is current, Jeremy F. Thank you very much. But 3DP Iceland, if you have the link, then paste it in here so these guys can see it. But I want to thank Rickie Tanner again. I want to thank all of the Kuntry Club for being here and, you know, just joining us for this. Teresa, you need to go back and watch it. It's a good story for this journey that Rickie has been on, you know, from high school here. Not really, Jeremy. Not really at all. But thank you guys, and we will see you Saturday morning on coffee.